just was a different person each time that I was lost. One night it was very, very wet and rainy and the ground was mud. We had nothing to sleep on, so we pulled down pine branches and slept on the branches all night, except we didn't really sleep. We were afraid of mountain lions and afraid of black bear that were in the area. And we knew they were in the area because we had heard about that and read about that before. And the other time we stayed in an abandoned cabin, but it was a rather old, dilapidated cabin. It didn't even have a roof. It had two steel cots there with just wire springs, no springs at all, just a wire mesh and no mattresses. And we spent a night there with my other friend. And that was a rather miserable night too. However, we survived both times and we got along okay.
How did you find your way?
What?
How did you find your way out, back to where you needed to be?
Well, we just kept following the river down until finally the one time we saw a ranch. There was a ranch way up in the mountains. And we saw the man with his plow trying to plow a field. We waved to him and he came up, he left his tractor, he came up to us. He said we weren't the first people that he had found that had been lost. So he was very nice to us. He took us in and he fed us a meal. And then we called for our friend to come up to one of the nearby towns to meet us. And he drove us down to a meeting place, to a well-known restaurant. So we finally got out on that one.
And what about the time you were lost with Judy?
The other time when I was lost with my friend Jean, I really thought we were not going to get out. Jean was a very tiny little lady, very tiny. She didn't always weigh 100 pounds. It was usually in the 90s. She had been a nurse with me at National Jewish Hospital for years. But Jean had arthritis much worse than I did at that time. And she said she just could not go on any further. She was the one that when we were lost on the rainy cold night and slept on top of the pine needles. In the morning she said she couldn't go on, she was just going to stay there. And I knew that if she did, she would die. And I said I would not go on without her, and I meant that. So I was prepared to die also. But I got her a good stout stick that she could lean on as a walking stick. And I finally did talk her into trying to go on a little further. And we finally came to an abandoned house. But it was a house that was well furnished. And they had one door that was open, and we broke into the house through that open door. And we found some food, and we ate some food. And we also found one old blanket that had a lot of holes. We took that with us in case we had to spend another night out in the woods. However, that next day we did find our way finally back down, and we found our way to the car. So we got through that. One of the more pleasant times I had in the mountains was when I went through an outward bound course. It was a 30-day course. I was in the first Colorado group for adults. Outward bound was usually for teenagers or young people. But at 40 years of age, I was the oldest woman there. There was one man who was 43, so they nicknamed us Grandma and Grandpa for our 30 days. Part of the 30 days was that we did, near the end, we did a full marathon. I believe that's 26.2 miles. And the marathon was done entirely above 10,000 feet of elevation in the mountains, up and down, on trail that you could hardly know was really trail. However, I did it, and I did finish it, and I came in just about midway with the group, a little over 3.5 hours, I believe, to do that 26.2 mile trip. Another part of the outward bound experience was that we were all taken up into the higher country, and we had to spend 3 whole days alone, completely alone. Each person had a 1 mile area, and they could not go out of that area that we were dropped off along the trail. We had no food, we had no blankets, we had no bedroll. We just had to survive on our own. There was a creek where we could drink water from the creek, straight from the creek. We survived, yes, we didn't get sick on that. And it was a very enlightening experience. I learned to overcome a lot of my fears. I learned that I could do things I never thought that I could do if I just forced myself to try. So it was a good way to learn one of the life lessons of keep on trying and you'll make it. Then, I also changed my life when I moved to Colorado by becoming a traveler. I thoroughly